it's the comparison that just kills everything, that kills us to not put ourselves forward and be genuine and put ourselves out there.
Welcome to CEOs on Video, the show to help you go from being the head of your business to the face and voice of your brand. If you're a CEO, a business owner, an entrepreneur who is involved in bringing a new business for your company, then you need to be putting out content. You are the subject matter expert in your business, and there's no one who can market it better than you can. In this show, I interview experts who are killing it online, using video, using digital media to grow their business, and we're going to show you how you can be doing the same.
One of the biggest opportunities in video content marketing right now is launching a podcast for your business. And it's what I've done here. It's what all the biggest marketing gurus, companies, giants have been doing for years. And it's what every small business should be doing as we head into 2023. My guest for today recently reached out and expressed interest in doing exactly that, starting a podcast, has ideas, but doesn't know exactly where to start. So I thought that we would record an episode and talk through it because so many of you are in the same spot. It might be helpful. So my guest for today is Dan Orr, the owner of Phoenix Media out of Adelaide, Australia. He has a background in corporate government and even as an environmental scientist, but over time he realized that his passion is actually in finding creative ways to blend storytelling and education through video. His area of focus is leveraging video marketing and strategy to help businesses increase their brand awareness and sales. He's on a mission to replace every About Us page that he comes across and help let your story sell you to your customers. So Dan, thank you for coming on. Well, good morning to you in Australia.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, absolutely. So when you reached out, I thought this would be by far the best way to do this because I think podcasts have become commonplace. It's common to see them pop up, but there's still a lot of like impractical advice, and it's, as with anything, it can just be overwhelming to know where to start, like, and wanting to do things properly, and like, what do you actually do? So when you think about starting a podcast, just like what comes to mind? What's the number one thing that's like where your mind goes for creating something for your own business?
For my own business, well, I love meeting people and learning. Fundamentally, it's who I am. And so the idea of starting a podcast was really to meet new people, learn about their business and how they go about their business. Even if it's not their business or it's a personal contact or something like that. I think it goes into the storytelling aspect. Everyone has a story and experiences to share. And I love learning from other people. So I think I saw your podcast and how you go about doing what you do and how you become an expert in that field and really engaging with new people and how they do things. So it's more about, just connecting with new people and learning new tactics, and how I can use them in my business.
Yeah. So I want to dig into that a little bit because I think and kind of hone this down, and as we go along, we're going to narrow down your idea and how to kind of package things into a podcast that's actually going to make sense. Because I think, like, on the surface, when you look at a podcast, it's a conversation between two people around some topic of interest, right? It can be self-help, it can be relationships, it can be business, it can be, it can be really specific or super broad. And where I think, at least the way I think about things, is a podcast should, and this is a big one, it should serve a purpose. Recording a conversation with, you and a buddy in the community, or just kind of talking about nothing, might be fun, but it's not really a good business exercise. And I see a lot of people kind of fall into that of they have no structure or no real like through line for what the show is actually for. So it kind of turns into maybe they have a topic high level that they're talking about, but it kind of just rambles on for 20 to 40 minutes and then it eventually ends. And yeah, it's just like whoever is willing to talk to them for an hour becomes a guest, which is one way to do it, but it's not what I would ever recommend if it's for an actual business.
Right.
So the first thing is to understand, like, what is it actually for? And this is where it comes to distinguishing how a podcast plays into your overall marketing ecosystem of their, you're in the video production space. So a lot of the content, I assume, that you're producing is like assets for testimonials or branding videos, brand message videos, maybe ads where it's more front loaded. It's meant to capture attention, very to the point, sales driven, which is fine. Like that's what that's for. But the mistake of treating a podcast like that is if you get into a 30-minute conversation and the point is to sell at the end of it, it's not a podcast, it's a webinar. So understanding that a podcast isn't meant to sell creates the question of, well, what's it for? And in my mind, it is to answer questions. Absolutely. It should be that if someone spends half an hour with you, they walk away with some sort of actionable thing that they can now fix. So to get really like a little bit meta here, the question here is like how to think about a podcast. So for your business, that could be the title, or we'll see. But the idea. So once you have kind of the idea of the show, which we can actually workshop this as we go, you talked about wanting to meet new people, presuming to eventually acquire new clients, correct?
Yeah, part of that is learning about their business and ultimately, like you just said, about what kind of podcast I'd like to do. It's much about me learning from them and how I can implement things, but also sharing their story. So it might be a marketing person, might be a photographer. They're all going to have their own different experiences in marketing their business and their life, and sharing those little nuggets of gold of tips and tricks that they can share. And if I can use that to implement in my business, but then share it with other people and sort of just gain an understanding of how that marketing ecosystem works. Yeah, I think it comes down to, sharing our stories and as you say, having an end goal by having that conversation. As you say, it shouldn't be salesy. It should be, it's not a webinar, it's having a conversation and being able to have that longer chat. Is more casual and relaxed, and so it comes across as more trusting, and people can take that and be calm in their assessment of what you're talking about. So you're not being sold to. There's no hidden agendas. I find that a lot more relaxing, and people know when they're being sold to. So if you haven't built up that trust in the first instance, then you've got no chance of selling anything anyway. And I like the idea of being able to break up the content that you do produce into small chunks to distribute that in the various platforms as well. I'm someone who doesn't put myself in front of the camera very often. I'm usually behind the camera, so it takes a while for me to put myself in front of the camera. That's a bit of a mental block, a bit of a perfectionist as well. So I like the idea of being able to chop up a casual conversation with someone into bite-sized chunks to distribute that for my social media and marketing.
Yeah. When you say perfection, what does that actually mean? Because I think, we're creative types of we envision it looking a certain way, and it, like, for instance, like your lighting looks fantastic. You're using a nice camera, a good microphone. Like you care about the presentation, which is good because it's a good representation of your skill. And I think, a video expert should be, they should present themselves well on camera in terms of technical look. But when you say perfection, like how do you even achieve that?
That is I think the rule is perfection is only if you take the action and actually perfect something. So if I often haven't gotten started enough to actually perfect it, so perfection is probably the wrong word. Maybe it's insecurity or inconsistency or fear of inconsistency. So If I'm going to do something, I want to do it right. And if I'm going to say I'm a video producer and doing videos for other companies, then I should be good at how I come across on camera as well. I mean, ultimately, it's my goal to make others look good for their cameras, for their film, and help them in their business. But I feel like it's a bit of it's not truthful if I can't come across as good on camera, and the lighting looks great and the sound looks great. So I want to make sure that that's as perfect as possible before I really get started. So, and then in comes consistency of the look. Producing, if I'm going to produce multiple videos of myself, then I'd like to have a consistent feel to it.
Yeah, and there's an element to that I think is appropriate, of wanting things to look good. I would never excuse poor, don't make things look bad intentionally.
Yeah.
But I think there's an inhibition we allow ourselves of saying, well, it's not going to look the way that I want it to, so now I'm excused from doing it. And I think that it's kind of it's a way of excusing ourselves from doing something that might make us a little uncomfortable, because it doesn't live up to our unrealistic standards.
Yeah.
I've had people, postpone because they have to lose 10 pounds first, or they need to, buy a house to have a background to make people think that they're successful. It doesn't matter. The only one worried about that is us.
Yeah. And outside influences, I think, has impacted that over, particularly in the social media realm, and the more content that we see of other people doing it, and the production quality of other people, and that comparison, it's the comparison that just kills everything. That kills us to not put ourselves forward and be genuine, and put ourselves out there. It's the fear of judgment. I mean, even this morning, I've made sure I'm feeling good and brush my hair and those sorts of things. So you got to do what you need to do to feel confident in what you're wanting to say and how you appear. And often that is, in the first step, is a visual cue to ourselves. And so I think that's how we first come across to people. So I think that's probably key of how I try to do things. And then it's having the confidence to be vulnerable. So it's that's something that I've gradually overcome over time. And I think that I'm not sure if it's a creative thing or in that sort of mindset. That maybe that's why we're generally behind the camera helping other people and not in front of it. I'm not sure if that's sort of combined, but to switch it around for you, like, how did you come across starting the podcast and being comfortable putting yourself out there to being on camera?
Yeah. I mean, the honest answer is, for a long time I wasn't. I tell clients jokingly, but it's true, that somewhere on my hard drives I have probably hours of footage of me just sitting in front of a camera trying to just get a sentence out.
Right.
Of just staring at the camera, like not able to articulate a thought, because I was just so terrified of it, and having to ask my wife, now I think she was my still girlfriend or fiance at the time, to go downstairs so she wouldn't be able to hear me, because I just couldn't bear no one can hear me stumble through this so terribly. So I get it. So whenever people are anxious or nervous in front of a camera, I understand from an empathy standpoint of, I understand. 100%. But the reality is, if you never do it, and it's not a skill that you've developed, then how can you possibly expect to be good at it? It's a skill, it's a muscle that you need to work. If you do it once ever, how can you expect to be perfect at it? It's something that over time you start to realize that your voice doesn't sound so bad. You get used to how you look on camera. You learn the little tics that you have that make you feel unnatural, or look a little uncomfortable. For the longest time, I had this weird thing I did with my eyebrows, where I'd be over exaggerating my facial expressions, because I thought, well, a camera's not going to be able to see it.
Sure.
I don't understand why, but it took years to be able to get over that. And if you just keep putting it off because you're scared that you won't be perfect the first time, I'll just take that pressure off. You're not going to be perfect the first time. It's going to probably be kind of brutal. It's going to be awkward and nerve-wracking, and it's not going to look very good. But the quickest way to get over that is to record, your next 5, 10, 20 videos. And by the end of it, you're going to be better than the first one. And then the real secret is you do a few hundred and you actually start to get decent. But that will never happen if you don't let yourself get the practice and the reps in to actually develop the skill.
Yeah, I agree. It's something I'm definitely overcoming, filming yourself and actually posting it, because we have control in this digital era to actually press cut and not post it. So the challenge of, is there a challenge to go live or posting our bloopers or things like that actually make us actually feel real to everybody else is something that I've looked into. And also looking at YouTubers' first videos, going back and actually looking at seeing where they've come from, I think is quite interesting to go down that pathway. Seeing, how unperfect it was, or imperfect rather. And I like to compare it to, most people have a fear of talking on stage in front of large crowds. So that's something else that I'm looking into, signing up for a course to do something like that, to push myself even further, to get it out of my comfort zone. So it's about taking action, actually getting over yourself. And the sound of your own voice is it's something that it's taken a while for me to get over. But I liken it to, everybody already knows what you sound like. So to try and change your voice, or fear of your own voice, would actually be even more weird if you started to change your own voice. So I think it's some of those insecurities that stops people from putting themselves on camera or putting themselves out there in general.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. Everyone you interact with already knows what you sound like. They already know what you look like. So when we start to get overly critical when seeing that for ourselves or hearing it for ourselves, we tend to assume that things are more noticeable than they are. That's something called the spotlight effect, where we think that I said something silly, or I stumbled over my words, or I did a weird thing with my eyes. Everyone knows, everyone's thinking about it. I promise you, no one cares. Everyone has their own lives going on. They're thinking about what they're going to eat for dinner, or what they're going to do this weekend, or the bills they're behind on. Nobody cares. It crosses their brain for a fraction of a minute, and then it's gone. And the only ones that torture ourselves over it is us. So the way that I personally kind of tackled that was to think, what if it isn't about, what if I stop focusing on all my reasons for not doing it and think about all the reasons for someone else that I should? What if me sharing this is what is going to help someone else? It's going to help them make more money in their business this year. It's going to help them get over their insecurity by sharing my own. It's going to maybe inspire them, or maybe it'll just distract them for a minute and just kind of give them a mental breather of what can I do for someone else? And if I didn't do it, wouldn't that be kind of selfish?
Yeah.
So shifting it away from ourselves takes some of that pressure off of it has to be perfect, because otherwise what will people think? It's not about us.
Yeah. I think it's about the value that we can provide. And even having this conversation is a bit meta, talking about it and putting ourselves on camera. But I find it's the more value that I can bring to other people, the more chats. Hence why looking at starting a podcast and sharing people's stories, and the videos that I'd like to do are more story based and trust building. And you get into those vulnerabilities and connecting with other people. And connection is how you build trust, and sharing similarities in people's stories and that sort of thing. So I think that goes down that sales line eventually. But being vulnerable and telling our stories and talking about this sort of stuff, I hope sends a message to other people that they can do it as well, and overcome those fears, and really put themselves out there. And the growth, how quickly you grow is amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, to bring this back into like using a podcast as a vehicle for business, I think one of the kind of most misunderstood aspects, or I mean, maybe unrealized aspects of it, is when you reach out to someone, typically on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever platform, you send someone a direct message saying, I do video, and I came across your website and I noticed you don't have an about us video. Like, almost no one gives you a time of day,
Yes.
right? Maybe some percentage might, if you do your homework and you reach out, make it personal, and maybe you get lucky and you catch someone right as they came out of a marketing meeting or something.
Yeah.
But most aren't really, like, they smell the sales pitch coming, and they kind of back away from it.
Mm.
But when you come from a point of, I see that you have a business in this industry, I have a show where I interview business owners or entrepreneurs about XYZ, about how the markets are changing, or how to improve their branding, or whatever your angle is. I think you would be a great guest. Would you like to schedule a conversation? Now it's a very different thing of you're offering them something rather than trying to set up a call or get their time from them.
Yes.
And it's, even if you have nobody following your show, if you have no listeners, no anything, most of the time people are just honored that you even reached out.
Mm.
And I think that's a huge opportunity, because then once you get once you have the conversation scheduled, now you can actually talk about, well, this is what we do. I'm actually in the video industry, and we work with clients kind of like you, and here's our reel. If you're interested, learn a little about us. And now it takes the pressure off of the conversation of, if they're interested, fantastic. And if they're not, they might be a good referral. They might be able to refer you to someone else that they know, but now you're not coming at them like a salesperson. And then you actually have something you can tangibly give them as a, something of value.
Absolutely.
So you can make it about them, and, bring awareness to their company or their purpose or mission, or whatever angle you take. But I think there's so much potential in just making more conversations rather than pushing for pitches.
Yes. I think, as I said before, everyone's got a story, and everyone wants to feel somewhat important. So by reaching out and asking other people to share their story and what they want to talk about, I think it's that the value there is just immense. And if cold calling or cold messaging on LinkedIn and things like that, there's many people get so many of them. So it's like, what makes you different? What value are you providing? What can we actually talk about? Let's try and make you special. And coming on the show and creating content that you can then obviously share to them. It shares what you do as well. And at the end of the day, we're sharing our story and trying to help other people. So I think that's, LinkedIn and all cold messaging is a fine art, that's for sure.
Hey there, if you are hearing this and you think a podcast might be right for your business, then you're in luck. One of the services that we do over at Evoke Media Labs, which is the sponsor of this episode, is create podcasts for busy entrepreneurs like yourself. Having a podcast is an excellent way to showcase your thought leadership, your industry expertise, and build connections within your industry so that you can provide something valuable to your audience in a non-salesy way. Nobody wants to download an ebook in exchange for an email anymore. Having a podcast lets you nurture and build trust with your audience and lets them get to know you a little bit before and up until they're ready to actually have a conversation with you. So if that sounds like something that you want in your business, shoot us a message and we'll see if we're the right fit for you to help you launch and grow your show. All right, back to the episode.
The benefit of, and this is kind of broadly relevant for all video in a lot of ways, but the benefit of a podcast or a YouTube channel or any of these formats where someone can get to actually know you is it's helpful for them too. In service businesses, it's really tough to know. It's hard to quantify if you pay someone what that experience is going to be. If that's a home builder, an accountant, a financial advisor, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever it might be, that you're going to spend a sizable chunk of money. And you can look at reviews, which most are text, so you get limited context of what it was actually like. And you're now relying on the ability of someone else to, communicate in written form effectively for what their experience was like. But you're kind of left with you don't know what that person is going to be like to work with. But if you listen to 1 to 3 episodes of 30-minute conversations and you hear how they respond, how they interact, their tonality, their presence, their personality, and you book a call with them and they're the same person, you've got a pretty good indicator of what that engagement is going to be like. And I think there's a lot of value in that for just increasing certainty that it's something they might want to consider.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think personality comes across if video is the second most important thing to meeting someone in person in terms of building trust and that connection. So testimonial videos and sharing someone's story in a video format is the best way to actually connect with other people. And that's why I talk about replacing About Us pages. I don't know how long it's been a template for every Webflow or Squarespace web page has an About Us section, I think, in the template. So it's I think it's time to change, and every website has a bio photo and a bit of a write up about how many degrees someone's got and all these other things. And text doesn't have the impact that it once was. So if you can show your personality through these in a 2 to 3 minute trusting sort of video, get to know me type video, or an about us video, I think you're more likely to connect with an audience. So that's what I'm on a mission to help the businesses that I work with, is to also to stand out and be different and show your personality and why someone should actually work with you. I think text on those pages is just, I don't know the last time I've actually looked at an About Us page and actually read through the whole thing and didn't get bored. In this age of video and short form content as well, we're wanting bite-sized pieces of information and those sorts of things. So it's I think it's an opportunity to actually share who you are.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, whether it's a 2-minute About Us video or full-length episodes, I think so much of a person's decision to work with us comes down to, do they actually like you? And I think it can be nerve-wracking to realize how big of a portion that is. It's not like people are doing real due diligence of weighing every option in the marketplace and comparing cost and accolades and testimonials and carefully weighing everything before they make a decision.
Yeah,
they probably have a couple of boxes they need to check of, can we afford it? Do I believe they can actually do what they say they're going to do? And a lot of it comes down to, beyond that, do I actually want to be around this person? And your personality, your who you are, is going to separate you far more than anything you put in your features and benefits section.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's also why we had, the influencer marketing that took off several, years ago, and why we buy into celebrity endorsements and things like that, because we already know personalities. We already build these trust in these people. We already know who they are and what they're about. So I guess we're now taking it to that next level for everyday people to actually build that up to then be their own influencer. That is essentially it.
Yeah. Which some people may hear that and think, well, I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want to be a guru, someone who's posing all the time and doing crazy stuff. That's not me. I don't want to do that.
No.
And to that, I would say, don't. Please don't. There's enough of that already.
Yeah. It's not the influencer type of, the vanity side of things. It's more the influencer of actually sharing who you are and what's your story and why should people actually trust you and get to know you. And that's what I talk about, the influence of actually influencing your audience as to who you are and what you stand for and connecting.
Yeah. There has been kind of a shift, over the last 10 years or so, really, as the internet has come into maturity, and access, and there's just unlimited knowledge available. We're now kind of in a time where you could call it an age of influencers, because now it's not about information, it's about how do you filter information for it to be useful. And I think each of us has an opportunity, if we're not trying to impact 1 million people, but if we can be the source of information to a couple thousand or a couple hundred even, depending on what kind of business you have, that's enough. Like, if you can just be their source to help understand the world of whatever it is you do, then that's all you need to do.
Yeah, it's the becoming an authority or trying to be the expert in your field of expertise. That's trying to share your knowledge and well, it's almost increasing your knowledge. The more you work with other people, the more that you can then share, and you become the go-to person in your industry.
Yeah. So something for you, because you've mentioned a couple times that you are more comfortable, behind the camera and kind of helping others tell their story. I think that's something that is important to lean into, even in this format, where technically, yes, you're on camera.
Sure.
And you're the host, perhaps. But it's still, the same principle still applies of, if you can be the good director or the good host, where you can help the other person feel comfortable sharing their story or their knowledge. Now you look at some of the great interviewers in this format of Tom Bilyeu with Impact Theory, or School of Greatness, or Entrepreneur on Fire. They're not the one talking most of the time. They're the ones just asking the right questions or encouraging a thread of conversation. And I think just leaning into that of, you don't need to be the expert. You don't have to be the one to know it all.
No.
You just have to help the other person feel like an expert.
Yeah, absolutely. It's doing a bit of research, asking the right questions, pushing the right buttons, challenging thoughts, I suppose, as well, to get deep. Even something as basic of, the Hot Ones YouTube show, where, he's a great interviewer. He gets a lot of compliments about his interview techniques, but he does, a deep dive into his guests and asks questions that other people haven't been asked before, to really challenge them. So, and that's where those genuine responses come out. And whether it's entertainment or education, and just information to help others, and just break down some of those barriers, I think is massive.
Yeah, I think you've got the right idea. What is it? And this might be a bit of a gear change, but what's kind of the main thing that feels like the hang up for actually starting a show?
Probably being different. I think it's the fear of just doing the same as what everybody else has done. That, to that degree, is probably having a set structure, probably planning it out ahead of time, how it's actually going to work. Whereas ultimately, I should just get started, like we said before. Just do the first one, see how it goes, practice, refine. And I guess that's that fear of imperfection, as I was saying before, consistency. So if I'm going to do it from the start, I want it to look great from the start. So it's sort of, it goes in a full circle,
It's a deathly trap.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's just breaking that cycle, putting myself on camera, just filming, getting one person in, and getting a test one done. I think my podcast would be similar to yours in terms of video, but I think I've got ideas around other creators, creativity, and people who make things or make things for other people or help others is something that I'm learning more and more about. I love the wine industry and winemakers and the processes that go along in that, but also photography and other marketing. There's always an element of connection with other people and creating something for other people. And I'd just love to know, like, what drives that, and, where they've come from, telling their story. And yeah, so that's something I'm looking at diving into.
Yeah. So that's actually a really common one of you have multiple passions or multiple topics you're interested in. It's like, how do I either make it all? How do I make it about all of them, or how do I choose one?
Yes.
And something I think that can that can help with that a little bit is think of it in seasons, or even entirely different shows. Of maybe you do a season where you go talk to winery owners if you're into wine and you're talking about their process. That could be a thing. Like, just think of it as you're producing a show for a single season for 10 episodes or 6 episodes or whatever. You do a pilot, and then if it goes well and you like it, then fantastic, renew that show. But if you're like, I kind of scratched that itch and I played it out and it didn't really love it or see a future for it, that's okay. Then you can explore the next idea. Because I think that it can be intimidating to think, I'm going to do an episode a week for forever. Like, it's not realistic for most people to commit to something that could span years. But sometimes people start with the first couple episodes and it lasts years because it's something they love.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah. So to feel like you need to choose one thing and stick to it can probably feel that's where I imagine a lot of pressure comes from.
Yeah.
And then how do you possibly make that perfect? Because you're not even clear on the idea.
Yeah. It's almost like, I can't call it interviewing winemakers and then do and then change it halfway through to something else. And it's like, well, then that's where that consistency breaks down. And so it's maybe I need something fairly generic in terms of my naming of a podcast or something like that.
Right. And maybe you start with an idea and it starts broad and then you refine it over time. Or you can, I think the big one is you don't need to have the branded intro and the full branding package for episode 1.
True.
Before I released anything for this show, I had 6 episodes recorded.
Right.
And it just helped me kind of get a sense of, okay, one, do I have a backlog of content? So then if scheduling gets crazy or I don't have any new guests, can I have something to release for at least the first 6 episodes?
Sure.
But then also just like, am I going to want to keep talking about this? And I wouldn't say that I've been perfect in terms of being overly precise and what each episode is for, but it's with the core idea of helping people be the face and voice of their company. That's the overall kind of theme.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about kind of ancillary subjects related to that. Sometimes it's branding or mindset or different aspects that play into it. But having the kind of the core North Star of your show, and then what are the subjects around it that you can kind of dial in. Yeah. If you can at least get the big one, then it gives you some room to kind of play and see what you actually want to do. But no big show had it completely figured out for their first episode.
No. I mean, you can look at shows like Oprah or Ellen, their whole show name is just their name. So they can choose whoever the hell they want to interview, I suppose. You know what I mean? So it gives that flexibility. So
right, and that could be a great place to start. Of maybe not have it be your forever plan, but if you have no real perfect grounding on what it is you want to do, just introduce yourself and treat it as I'm just interviewing businesses or people doing interesting things.
Yes,
and then you might find a niche that you really, really like. And it might surprise you.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best approach. Then you're not sort of pigeonholed into a certain area, and then that becomes a bit restrictive. It's also not as, I keep saying salesy, but yeah, it's the intention is to learn from other people, and so I don't want to just interview people, making it come across as that I'm looking for clients to work with. It's more about learning and helping other people. So I think that's quite important too.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Dan, thank you for coming on. I'm going to cut things here. But for anyone listening right now who has been stuck, or maybe you had an idea that you've been chewing on for a while, I just want to push you and encourage you to start. Because once you do, I think we have a habit of making mountains out of molehills, and it's not going to be as challenging or as overwhelming as you think. But the longer you delay taking that first step, the bigger it's going to feel, the more overwhelming it's going to feel. So just start. Imperfect action, and make it easy on yourself, and make it fun.
Yeah.
This is one of the most enjoyable ways to market. I personally believe that. Maybe not everyone will agree with me.
Well, I'm enjoying myself, so yeah, that helps.
It genuinely beats writing copy, or slaving over email sequences, or all of the hundreds of ways that you can market a business. Having a conversation around a topic that you're knowledgeable about, passionate about, interested in, with cool people, meeting new people, it's really exciting. It's something that I think everyone should experience, and you'll be surprised by the benefits outside of creating content. You actually get to interact with other people and connect beyond the very surface level interaction that most of us get in social media and in most of our interactions. And I really encourage you, even if you don't stick with it, or it's not really for a business, give it a shot, and I think you'll be surprised. So thank you for listening, Dan. Thank you again for being here. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of CEOs on Video. I hope you got something valuable from it. If you liked this episode of CEOs on Video, be sure to let us know by giving us a follow. Leave us a rating on Apple Music. It would mean the world to us. So let us know what you liked, what you didn't, and if there's anything that we can do to help you, be sure to reach out. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you on the next one.